think the window is getting bigger. It's actually a door, and we can actually accomplish this.
He strikes out the side. Oink, oink. Roman reigns supreme in Gotham. A signature moment.
Swinging a drive. He killed it. And it's out of here. It's gone. St. God does it. The Sox win it.
Hey guys, thank you for clicking on the link to this one. So for those of you that are relatively new to this channel or haven't really heard me speak much on it, when this channel first came out, it was much more intended to be like a podcast. If you actually look at like in the thumbnail, it says Sox Content and Podcast right below it, because I thought it was going to be a podcast. I was thinking that it was going to be more of like me talking about the Red Sox. The original first episodes that I put out of that, just not the style that I was hoping to go for, not really the voice that I wanted to give out. And I took like a hiatus from doing that for a long time. Obviously, I've made videos where I talk, edited type videos like the Roman Anthony video that became popular, the Yostinson Garcia video. There are also times where I just like to talk. Like I like to kind of go over my thoughts on the Red Sox, and that's more of like what this style of video is going to be. It's all incorporated into one channel. At least for the time being, it's going to continue to be that way. And yeah, so in this video, we are going to talk about the Red Sox post-mortem, basically. It's been a few days since the Red Sox were eliminated from the postseason 2025 by the Yankees in Game 3 of the wild card. And, kind of a devastating way to end the season. I think we can all kind of agree on that. That's just like not the performance that you expect from a rookie pitcher against the Red Sox. I mean, 8 shutout innings or with 12 strikeouts. It's just, it's one of the greatest performances in postseason history, and by a rookie is kind of embarrassing a little bit to be a Red Sox fan. It is a tough way to end, but, we're not really here, I guess, to complain about how the season ended, because there are a lot of factors into why, the Red Sox didn't perform well. Roman Anthony, I think, obviously the number one factor. Lucas Giolito being down, he couldn't pitch in Game 3, so we had to throw Connolly early out there, and give credit to Connolly. He did terrific. I mean, defense really is what gave up that game. I mean, I think that there's a pretty real chance where Early can go out there and he can give you a lot longer performance. He was dealing up until that 4th inning. And there were some signs of weaknesses in that 4th inning, but the defense just kind of gave it away. And obviously you can't win a ball game if you don't score any runs, which the Red Sox did not score any runs. So between the defense and the offense, that's kind of the cause for the end of the season here for the Red Sox in the wild card. But when you are looking at the season as a whole, the successes of this season are pretty apparent, and making the postseason is number one priority. I mean, there were a lot of pundits out there that I think didn't expect the Red Sox to do this well, and then there were some others that thought they were going to do a lot better. So I think that this is kind of like within expectations of where the Red Sox were supposed to be, right? Making the playoffs, getting knocked out in the first round, it's not the worst thing to happen for a young team that is trying to get its footing into what they're going to be in the future. Especially when you were able to call up all of your top prospects. Now, we had some successes. Obviously, the aforementioned Roman Anthony, one of the most impressive rookie performances ever. I mean, I hate to say I called it, but, I kind of did a little bit. It's not that big of a call, I guess, when everybody's calling it, but he's doing what I thought he was going to do. I think Roman Anthony in the future is going to be like a 25 home run hitter next year if he can play a full season. If he gives you 140, 150 games, he's hitting 25 home runs with a close to 400 on-base percentage. In the long term, I think he's a guy that could hit 40 home runs. I really do think he's that special of a player. 40 home run bats don't come along very often. And saying that he's going to be that is obviously super aggressive. I think if you were to ask most people, they would say he's between 30 and 40, but he's just that type of guy that's like a Juan Soto reincarnate. And that's one of the massive successes of this season. And then you have the Garrett Crochet signing. So the trade and the signing for Garrett Crochet, just one of the most important moves in recent Red Sox memory. I mean, he was dominant in Game 1, right? And so getting him this season and getting Roman Anthony called up, those were probably the two biggest successes. And not only did you get them called up, but you got them signed, right? Long term, They're going to be with this team for the next 6 years. Roman Anthony obviously longer, and this is the foundation of how you build a championship. You have your core player. Roman Anthony's going to be batting in the top 3 of this lineup the entire time of that contract. I almost guarantee it. His on-base percentage skills are just too great, and even if that power doesn't develop into 40 home runs, I would find it very hard to believe if he's not hitting regularly in the mid to high 20s. So he's still going to be sitting in the top 3 spots in the lineup, even though he doesn't have that great speed. I think he utilizes it well. He was able to be successful on the base pass this year too, and that's all as a rookie, like a 21-year-old rookie, right? And so when you've got the Roman Anthony extension, the Garrett Crochet extension, you start looking at like the big picture of how this last season went. And I think that you have to give Craig Breslow a lot of credit for how well he did this season in that aspect. Now, I think some of you might be listening and you're like, well, Craig Breslow really screwed up some things. I agree. There were some super highs, which, the Crochet and Roman Anthony signings, extensions, trades, all that was super high. And then there were some big time lows. The Rafael Devers trade, I think it's just a disaster from the front office and Craig Breslow personally. They were able to overcome that a little bit with Roman Anthony, but if you were to start the beginning of the season, I think you just want Rafael Devers playing first base, and then you have Roman Anthony still in your lineup, and then it's just like, okay, now we don't have to worry about the problem that we're facing this offseason, which is where's our power back going to come from? Where is the partner to Roman Anthony going to come from to be able to like stabilize the top to middle of this lineup? We have Alex Bregman, but I think he's opting out, and I don't know if we're going to re-sign him, but we'll talk about that more in a second. But the highs and the lows this season for Craig Breslow, apparent trading Devers, and then also acquiring Dustin May for James Tibbs. I think that makes the acquisition of Tibbs and Harrison and the Rafael Devers trade just in general, I think it makes it look really weak. And, we're going to be able to move on from that. And if there's successes in the future for this team, it's fine. But I think that those are substantial mistakes and failures. But overall, when you still just look at the things they were able to accomplish, the Christian Campbell extension, it's still a great extension at this point to me. It's so early to count that out. And to be able to have a guy like Campbell who has a strong ability to hit the ball and hit the ball hard, I think that you can count on that in the future to kind of stabilize. Is he going to be that player that, is a guy that can bat in the top 4 or 5 of the lineup long term? I don't know. But could he end up being that guy that's like, hey, he's your 6-7 hitter, and he maybe can improve his defense a little bit, but he's going to hit you like, 20 home runs and have a good average and, steal some bases. It's fine. The contract's not going to be a total wash. I mean, we see what happened with the Rafael extension. People really hounded on that when it first happened. And when Rafaela struggled, it was like, what are we doing? And then Rafaela was like one of the best hitters in baseball for like 6 to 8 weeks. And everybody was like, wow, this contract's amazing. And then he sucked at the end of the season outside of like the last week. And people, again, were like, what are we doing? But overall, like Rafaela, if you look at B-WAR, was our most valuable player this year. And it took him a little bit to kind of like get that contract worth it. But his defense is just so amazing that even if he gives you like slightly below average offense, you're going to take it. And I think that you see Christian Campbell, and if he can kind of do maybe a little bit of the opposite, like where he can have a really nice hit tool, even if he doesn't hit for the power that maybe people were projecting him to, even if he stabilizes in that 15 home run range, which I think is totally reasonable, some doubles thrown in and then some speed. As long as he gives you like slightly below average defense, maybe somewhere, I think that contract's not the worst thing in the world. And I just love the aggressiveness when it comes to signing these young players. I mean, it's a good sign for the future, especially when you trade a guy like Rafael Devers, who was like your only hometown guy that you had signed, just being able to go after and be like, we're signing, we're extending these guys long term, so you have your core already lined up. I think it's you have to give credit to Craig Breslow for that and the front office. It's very impressive to be able to do that, and it's a streak that you don't see from front offices very often. Now, the question kind of takes us to like what's next, right? And so we see, I mentioned just a briefly ago, but the middle of this lineup, the top of the lineup, there was really nothing scary about this lineup heading into the postseason. I mean, you look at the Yankees, and they'll tell you like they're scared of Alex Bregman, obviously because of what he's done to them in the past in the postseason. And Bregman's been a great postseason hitter, but after he came back from that injury, he just was not the same player. And I am the first person to say the impact that Alex Bregman had on this 2025 Red Sox was incredible. I mean, like offensively and for the All Star break, he was just amazing, amazing player. And then on the coaching aspect of it, even like on the pitching side, like Alex Bregman was a very integral part to make sure that players were getting the best out of themselves. And he's like having another coach on the team, and he supports, and he is just a huge leader. And it's extremely important to have that on a young team. With all of that said, though, I don't know how I feel about the Red Sox re-signing him. I think that if he's going to get $150, $200 million, I mean, we saw how badly this injury hurt him at the end of the year. Even after he came back, he just was not the same hitter. His power was basically gone. He was still getting some, getting on base a little bit, hitting some singles and some doubles every now and again, but he's not the guy that you like are worried is going to hit you 2 home runs against you in a game. That's just really not what they saw, and that's what we had in the first half. He was on pace to hit 40 home runs, and I think that he's getting to that point in his career where he's entering his mid-30s, and if you're entering that age range and had an unproductive second half, and you're looking to give that guy an extension or a contract that's $150, $200 million, which I think he's looking for, and he might get from a team like the Tigers, I don't know if I want to match that. I think it comes down to the annual value, really, because that applies to like the luxury tax and everything. I mean, if you can get like a 6-year deal, I guess, or something, that seems way too long for me. But if you can get like a deal that lowers the AAV, or maybe the market's low enough to where we're not paying him $40 million a year like we did this last year, because we gave him a short-term contract with a high AAV, which at the time was fine because we had the money to spend. But I think I would rather commit the resources to other players that are more consistent and reliable. You look at Pete Alonso, he's played every single game the past few years, and he just goes up and hits you 40 home runs. He's a bat that you can slot 3 to 5 in the lineup, and it's just like you have to circle that. And in the postseason, you don't want to deal with Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso's also getting up there in age a little bit more, but when you have a guy who has been doing what he's been doing so consistently over the past 3-4 seasons, he's played like every single game. I mean, it's hard not to look at that and say that, okay, maybe he is going to age a little bit more gracefully in like a first base DH type role. Now, we have that role kind of filled already by Masataka Yoshida, and Yoshida was, without question, one of our better hitters the last couple weeks of the season, probably our best postseason hitter. And I think if you give Yoshida reps, he's just going to be Yoshida, right? Like in the first couple of years where he was here healthy, he was like a 280 hitter and 15 home runs a year. And he like gets on base, he works good counts, doesn't strike out, and it's a super valuable player to have, but just from a DH position, and I know they threw him in the outfield a lot more this year after not playing him at all there last year. It's hard to see where he can slot in. And especially with how crowded the outfield already is, what are they going to do with that? I mean, we've been talking about that. We talked about that so much earlier in the year. Like, how are they going to fit Roman Anthony into the lineup? And the solution was to trade Rafael Devers. Well, now we're going to head into this next season, and theoretically everybody's going to be healthy. But you still have Jaron Duran, Rafael Devers, or Cedar Rafaela, Wilyer Abreu, and Roman Anthony for 4 outfield spots. And then you throw in Yoshida, and that's 5 players. And you can rotate them through DH, but that's still 5 players you'd like to play every day that are not going to play every day. And so one of them at least has to go. And then if you're still trying to add like a power bat like a Pete Alonso or something, like, yeah, he can play first base for a little while. But he wasn't a great first baseman this last year. And while on paper that might solve some problems, I don't know how that works out in terms of like logistically with this team, unless you can trade some of these guys. You saw what Jarren Duran did in the postseason, and that was not great. He is his own worst enemy and his biggest supporter when he is doing well and when he's doing poorly. And I think that in the postseason, he allowed that pressure to get into his head, and that was a concern of mine heading into it. I'm like, how's Jarren Duran going to fare in the postseason? I'm like, well, there's a pretty good chance that he's not going to do well, and he didn't do well, and he really cost us probably one of the games. We maybe could have gotten out of Yankee Stadium in 2 games if he had made that crucial error in game 2. And, that's not to pin everything on Jarren Duran, but it's just like an example of lack of focus. And I just don't know if he's a season player. And then on the opposite end of that, you look at Wilyer Abreu, and he seemed like he was literally shaking in his boots at times. I mean, so uncomfortable in the outfield, almost collided with Cedar Rafaela in center. Again, all of these guys are super young players, so take stock with what you have now, but also know that it's just like, okay, what are they going to do in the future? When you're looking at all these guys and they're like 23, 24, 25, 26 year olds, like it's hard to like base what their career is going to look like off of 3 games, but at the same time, when you're making decisions, these are things that you have to take into account. I feel like other like external options are like Kyle Schwarber, but from what it sounds like, Dave Dombrowski is just not going to let him go. And when Dave Dombrowski wants something, he gets him. And so I think that Schwarber's going to stay in Philadelphia, and he's going to get like a 3-year, $40 million a year contract. He's going to be, or like 4 years maybe. Like he's going to get a ton of money from the Phillies. And so I just don't think that that's a possibility for this team, even though I would love to see Kyle Schwarber back with the Red Sox. Logistically, I don't know how it fits. And then even with that in mind, even if he did fit into this lineup with just the amount of players we already have to deal with, like, I just don't think they're going to be able to afford him or outbid the Phillies, I guess is a better way to say that. Overall, though, I do think that the season was a success. And as heartbreaking as it was to lose against the Yankees in the postseason, which is really just not something that I've ever had to deal with. I mean, I was 9 years old when the Red Sox lost to Aaron Boone in 2003. And yeah, I just really wasn't a Red Sox fan at that point. Like, I kind of became a fan during that 2004 series. So it's kind of weird for me to be like, oh, we lost against the Yankees in the postseason. And I know for some of you guys listening now that might be a little bit older, you're looking at that and you're like, man, my whole life was losing to the Yankees. And I just haven't experienced that yet. I mean, yeah, they beat us in the regular season, but truthfully, I could care less if they beat us in the regular season at the end of the day because they just fumble in the playoffs every single year. I mean, they only have one championship compared to the 4 that the Red Sox have gotten in my lifetime, essentially, like when I've been a fan. And so yeah, it's really easy to kind of like be like, okay, yeah, Yankees, you can win the division, whatever, but like we're gonna win the division once every 4 years and take the championship. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna win the division the other 3 years, and then you're just gonna get knocked out. Um, so yeah, I guess I mean they're getting spanked right now by the Blue Jays. It looks like they're gonna be knocked out in the ALDS, which is just gonna be hilarious. But if that comes to pass again, it makes losing to the Yankees easier and harder in some ways because you look at it and the Yankees clearly are a flawed team right now. And the Red Sox are too. But I just think that I have to think that if Roman Anthony was on this team heading into game 2, the Red Sox take game 2 and then they're playing against the Blue Jays right now. And when you have a guy like Garrett Crochet, and then you have, I haven't even mentioned him yet, but Aroldis Chapman. Wow, what an incredible season from Chapman. In other years, he would potentially be like a number 2 Cy Young candidate, but he's probably going to get like 4th or 5th, something like that, just due to the great pitching that they've had in the American League this year. But like he had like an all-time great relief season this year, and that extension again, that's another thing that I haven't even mentioned about like the successes of Craig Breslow this year, but extending Chapman to a pretty team-friendly contract, in my opinion. I think it was like $11 million, $12 million. When you look at like guys like Tanner Scott who are making $20 million a year to suck, I mean, Chapman was like in the middle of an incredible run when he signed this, and now he's gonna be with us for another 2 years, and he's aging like fine wine. And you can't love all the things that Chapman has done in the past, but I mean, he's been a good presence on this team. I've heard positive things from like his teammates, and I mean, you can feel however you want to about how Chapman is as a person, and I feel that way too about like what he's done in the past. Like it's gross, but at the same time, you know, if he's gonna be playing in the lead and somebody's gonna sign him, I'd rather he dominate for the Red Sox than dominate against the Red Sox. And that's kind of what it is when we're talking baseball perspective, right? Um, so we don't have to get into that too much more, but the uh, the postseason, going back to what was my original thought here, the when you have a guy like Crochet and then you have a guy like Chapman and then you have like players who can win a game for you on their back, like a Roman Anthony or a healthy Alex Bregman, like you only need a couple of guys to kind of take over for a few days and they can like own a series. And so Chapman coming in there and doing what Chapman did, I mean, he was very good in the games that he appeared in the postseason. And then you have Garrett Crochet, who obviously dominated his start. Like, if Crochet pitches twice in a 5-game series, he can do that, and then 3 times in a 7-game series. Like, that's just the type of guy who can win you a championship just on his own. I mean, the only other pitchers in the league that are kind of like Garrett Crochet right now in my mind are Taylor Skubal, who's a little bit better than Crochet, but they're very similar pitchers in terms of how they dominate games. And then Paul Skeens. There are some other great pitchers in the National League, but I just don't look around the league and think that there are pitchers that are better than those three. I think those three are like on a different plane of existence right now. And at the end of the day, that's really like just what you need. You need those dogs who can carry you, and you need like a number one. And if they had a number two starting pitcher who could have been successful in this series, you know, the Red Sox had a very good chance of winning the American League this year. And I think next year they're going to be aggressive. I think they're going to do some things in the offseason that will add to this team, help improve this team. And when John Henry feels like he's close to winning a championship or winning, you know, the American League, I feel like he puts money into this team. And he obviously proved that he's willing to put some money into this team this last year. I'm not going to go ahead and say that he's going to just push $40-50 million over the luxury tax this year. But at the same time, he's willing to do it. And he was in the dugout when the Red Sox won the division. He was in the dugout during the playoffs, I believe. So he's obviously involved and he cares a little bit about this team, regardless of how much he has frustrated the hell out of me the past few years. His presence has been noticed this year, and his money has been obvious with the extensions that we've seen. So, if you have all of that in mind, I want to know what we're going to do this offseason. And if the Red Sox can pick up a legitimate starter to go behind Garrett Crochet, then I think that you look at us heading into this next season and you have Bayo as hopefully your number 3-4 starter. And then you have guys like Connolly Early, Peyton Tolley, Kyle Harrison, Richard Fitz, all of these guys that can kind of mix in like the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spots. I mean, the pitching depth this year was incredible. We ended the season with having to start a rookie who had made 4 career starts. But even that rookie was impressive, right? And when you really think about it, the Red Sox rolled out like 12 starters this year, and like 10 of them were successful in some degree or another, right? Like pretty much all of the starters they rolled out were relatively successful for what we were asking them to do. And the reason that we had to roll out Connolly Early is because they were all hurt. And I think that just speaks to the depth that the Red Sox do have. And I heard this on the Sox Prospects podcast, but they were saying that the only team that they felt like could compare to the Red Sox in terms of pitching depth this year was the Dodgers. And when you really think about it, it seems kind of accurate. Like, I mean, we had Garrett Crochet, Brian Bayo, Lucas Giolito were the 3 dogs that we had most of the season. We're doing great. And then we had guys like, you know, Tanner Houck obviously really struggled, but like Sean Newcomb started the season in the rotation. He was gone too. But then after that, you had like Hunter Dobbins, Richard Fitz, Kyle Harrison, Connolly Early, Quinn Priester played a few games before we traded him. Like, it just goes on and on. Like, Cooper Criswell really didn't play much at all this year, but like he gave you a great single start of 7 innings, and he could be in the mix more moving forward. But it's just having that depth is so crucial, and the depth that they have right now is great. And I hope that they don't try to rely on that moving into next season and just be like, oh yeah, slate Kyle Harrison and Connolly Early into the 4 or 5 spots in the rotation, because that's how the season ends in disaster. And I don't think they're going to do that. But if they can get another like Joe Ryan type pitcher, and I'm not saying it has to be Joe Ryan, I think that they're going to re-engage in trade talks like they did with Garrett Crochet the season prior, and hopefully get a deal done that doesn't include like Peyton Tolley. But if they can get a guy like that, maybe extend him again, and then you have that Bayo, then you've got 2 guys that you really can feel pretty good about, like in Crochet and Joe Ryan or whoever it ends up being, and then you're good to go. You get another big bat in lineup to go with Roman Anthony, and you keep building on the guys that you have, like Cedar Rafaela, and Christian Campbell's gonna be back in the mix, and then Wilyer Abreu's still young. Like there are a lot of guys that are gonna do good things in 2026, and it's gonna be a really exciting year next year. I feel strongly about that. But anyway, we're gonna kind of just wrap this one up. I have more videos that I'm gonna make like this. We're gonna do some more like statistical lookup in the near future. We'll look at exactly how the team fared and like what we could be doing in the near future. I made a post recently about like what you guys would like me to do in some of my future videos, and so I'm going to take some of that into consideration. Again, a lot of this is time based. You know, I work a full-time job. I've got a 1-year-old son. My life's pretty busy, so I try to do some of this stuff when I can, but this is going to be something that I'll do for fun every now and again. And hopefully you guys enjoy the stuff that I make and highlight videos that I put out. So thank you for tuning in again. And if you like this one, I guess we'll see you in the next one. Bye.